And we are live, everybody. Okay, so I'll start. Hi, everybody. I'm Danny Fan, and then we'll move to Ty and Qual, I guess.
I'm Qua.
I'm Ty.
And today we're gonna review and go over Southland by Nina Revoyr.
Yes,
Revoyr.
Revoyr.
Revoyr. Qual's gonna give you a little bit of an intro and synopsis of the story. Go, Qual, go.
All right, so Southland by Nina Revoyr is a book that begins with the death of Frank, an old Japanese man who had inherited a store from an unrelated man that gave him the ability to support his family. His daughter Lois came across a will that Frank had written a long time before. He had sold his house and his store, which listed a boy by the name of Curtis as its inheritor. Now they didn't know why Frank had to sell the house and store right away. Um, so as the story unfolds, Lois had stumbled upon $30,000 in Frank's closet and tells her daughter Jackie to search for Curtis. So Jackie is
The
um,
niece.
a
Niece.
second-year law student who had become distant from her grandfather and believed that her grandfather had left nothing behind. Um, but we find that in the end, Curtis, whose father was unknown, is actually Frank's son. So we will go through the themes that we found in Southland. Sorry, we spoiled it for if we spoiled it for you.
I know, right? Spoilers. Sorry.
So the first theme that we had discussed, um, that we want to discuss, is the first and second generation and the generational gap between the two. Danny,
Yeah.
did
um, there's definitely a gap, mostly from Jackie's perspective, how she also gets really frustrated in how there's so many things within the history that doesn't get exchanged from generation to generation, whether it be from like embarrassment or otherwise. It's like there's not only a gap in language, but also a gap in like life experiences. Um, Jackie goes back multiple times thinking about how little time she spent with her father, even though her grandfather, even though he adored her so much. And as we find out more about his history, he becomes more of an adored character, and she just kind of does regret like not spending more time with them.
So another thing that was, oh, oh, sorry, there was a lag on your end. So
Oh, but I'm lagging like crazy, so just
I think
wait
I
for
am
it.
too.
okay, so another generational gap difference that they had um, was that Frank Frank was also like a war veteran, and he was also one of the old Japanese like Nisei characters. Um, and Frank's granddaughter Jackie actually had a girlfriend, and so her sexuality was not really traditional heterosexual; it was homosexual. So that was another difference that they had between them.
Yeah, they kind of go through a lot of like styles of living. Like Jackie is queer, and then her aunt Lois is living with her boyfriend. They're not even considering marriage and stuff like that. She even feels like she's closer to Lois than she is with her own parents. So just like um, the culture of like style of living that they choose to be in is also very different.
I think there's a big parallel between Frank's interracial relationship and Jackie's um, queer relationship.
Oh, definitely.
Yes. Um, well, we didn't touch upon that yet. Curtis is actually, no one knew what his racial identity was. They knew he was half black, and they didn't know what the other half was. It was said in the beginning of the book that he was either white and black, or, but later when we find out that he was Frank's son, that brings into play the question of multiraciality. Um, and throughout the play, they were trying to figure out who Curtis. we had found out that Curtis was actually murdered, and they, in trying to find out who the murderer was, they found out that the murderer was an African American and not a white American. And sorry.
I think it goes into the whole idea that, like, because we touched upon it earlier about, I think a common theme is that, like, this is not just like an Asian American book. It's also, it's more like ethnic studies in general, and it's not just like Frank's story. It's like everybody's story. It's also in the layout of it. It's very much like Crash or Lost or like Once Upon a Time, and it shares different perspectives and different stories of multiple characters from multiple backgrounds, and it's theme of like everybody's people, everybody hurts each other, everybody loves each other regardless of race.
I really like the.
Go for it, Ty. Go.
I really like the theme about community and how close knit the community of Torrance, that area, is. I didn't know.
Gardena.
Gardena. Is it Gardena?
Yeah. Ish.
Okay. All right. Gardena area.
Yeah.
I think it goes all the way down to Torrance too. The Mesa Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just really cool to see like that community when everything else is so racially charged, black and white, and that the community itself is really multiracial and everybody gets along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really funny because like there's this like visualization of like Frank and Victor, who's like they're best friends. Frank is Japanese American and Victor's black, and they're just taking a smoke and they chill, and they grew up together, they went to high school together, and they aged together, which I think is really beautiful in terms of the relationship they had throughout the whole thing. Like Victor actually like took care of Frank's like land and like home while he was away on internment and stuff like that, and that relationship is very human. It's above all human, not just about race and stuff like that, which is really cool.
Another topic that we talked about was the idea of the model minority, where Jackie was actually a second-year law student, so she played into the role of the model minority, as well as her parents, who were doctors.
Yeah, that's something that her partner in crime, James, he pointed out really quickly about how like, they've gone a long way since the shop, like Frank's generation, as his family has gotten really far. And I think it alluded to they've gotten really far in life, but they also got far in terms of like their home of like that area of the story, as if they became successful by leaving, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Am I still lagging? I'm not sure.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Trying to see if there's anything to add.
Yeah. Oh, something on the lines of that is something very similar to how I think Frank, like, there was a moment where Jackie was really excited to find out that Frank was a war veteran and a hero, and his response to it is that like, he didn't change anything, like nothing changed. And then it goes to alludes to like all the things that the other veterans, like Japanese veterans, have gone through. They got through so much discrimination. They didn't get any recognition. They actually got like shamed, and people would pass out their names off of like memorials and stuff like that. And it's really interesting how like all this history happened, but like there are so many people that aren't aware of this history, and even the people that are closest to those that were actually involved in it didn't know about it. Not because like Frank didn't want to share it, you know, which I thought was interesting. How like this history is hidden because it was chosen to be hidden in a way that it was.
Kind of have that with our community too. If you want to broaden that the scope. Vietnamese community is much the same way. People don't want to talk about the Vietnam War. People don't even want to go back. I know older people that they knew once they left that they were gone for good. And it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to see when you actually do hear all these stories, and you get really different perspective on the Vietnamese American community and um, our past in general.
hmm I think it's really interesting how people don't want to share it, but it really makes them who they are. Jackie mentions in a portion of how like she is somewhat, even though a lot of these experiences are bad, she is somewhat envious that everybody has uh, is in some sort of solidarity and that they've gone through something really rough in their life that really shaped them to be who they are. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's something that she was partially at moments envious of, but also glad that she's able to be analytical about the situation and actually find out the truth about her grandfather. Wow, that went through all of my points.
I know.
Well, overall,
Well,
oh, go ahead, Paul.
there was another point that you wanted to make about Rachel.
Oh, oh yeah. So, in the beginning of the story, Jackie is in a relationship with uh,
Laura.
Laura, who is white and Jewish, and is really involved in working with the mayor of LA County and stuff like that. As the story progresses, her relationship with Laura they become more distant, um, and she also at one point gets into a fight with Laura when she gets into this realization that there's this case of Thai immigrants, Thai women that are basically um, working in the black market and like getting deported back to Thailand and stuff like that. And Laura, who's working with the mayor, they're not doing anything about it. And Jackie takes it really personally. And before it was something that she wouldn't care for, she didn't even notice. But after learning more about herself, her father, she became a little more closer to her Asian American identity. And throughout the story, she goes to her friend Rachel for advice and to talk about her family and stuff like that. And Rachel is half Asian American, and I think the other half's Irish or something else along those lines. And in the end, she actually does end up with Rachel. And it's really interesting because there were moments where she considered dating Rachel earlier, but didn't pursue her because there was something about her, how she was so similar that she didn't find it attractive. But towards the end, she finally was like attracted to it and did accept it. And I think that was really a moment of her accepting herself, her identity, and like her culture in a sense. Yeah, something like that.
I think throughout the book, for the most part, Jackie is trying to find out who she is
Yeah.
through Frank's life.
hmm
She doesn't really accept, doesn't really know, doesn't want to believe that this is who she is, and she's trying to find that identity that she can relate to, because she has so many conflicting personas and so many conflicting, I guess, tags to her that she doesn't know where to start.
So, do you believe this is more of a coming of age, like a Bildungsroman story, where she's trying to tell a story about herself, or more of an ethnic story where she's trying to tell a story about her culture and her background,
I think it's
or
a more
a
ethnic story.
combination of both?
I think it's more of an ethnic story as like of the community of like different because it's not only her story, but James also in a way goes through a transformation um, and he has his own struggles as he's going through finding about his cousin, and he's very much emotionally tied to it as well. I feel like it's one of those stories that involves a lot of people and has multiple narratives. So it's like a multi-ethnic cultural community.
I think a way to look at it is the community is coming of age. That everybody in the community kind of figures it out. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell happened to Curtis? What Jackie's place in the world is? Where James needs to be angry, all these different things, and just the whole community comes of age.
Yeah.
There was a quote that I found in the beginning of the story when Jackie meets I forgot his first name. James, sorry. And she says um, she didn't have the energy to explain how her family didn't talk, none of them, including her grandfather. Um, no, no words laced together into the chains of intertwined stories that connected her to um, anyone's past. More than gaps in the narrative, there was no narrative. And I find it ironic that they said that there was no narrative when there was so much to tell. But it also goes back to the fact that there wasn't the generations and the communities, the people in these communities didn't talk to each other. They didn't communicate with one another.
Yeah.
And in trying to find out what happened to the store and to Curtis and to Frank, it was a community coming together. So
Yeah. Because a lot of the people in this community haven't talking to each other in so long. They were definitely broken apart through different parts of history and different events. And there are parts in the story where like they get really graphic and really specific into their stories, but they're not really necessarily revealed to Jackie or James. So in the sense that there is still a lot missing, and there's still that's not being shared. But we, as the reader, are able to go into this world with them.
Was there a moment in the book where you thought that Jackie was exoticized, or just Asian American women in general were exoticized? Because for me personally, I didn't think there was.
when they talked about Mary,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that it was um, that she was being easily, like, I guess, manipulated by, or not manipulated, she was like easily spooned by
Yeah.
an Asian American. It wasn't as big of a deal as if it would be like another race.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I think it's kind of refreshing to see that Jackie, as the main protagonist, that there wasn't a moment where her being an Asian woman was really, you know, brought to our attention.
Yeah.
But Danny, didn't you feel that there was a lot of marginalization because of the fact that she was Asian and she was female and um, and queer?
There were, well, it's weird because like I think she feels that for herself, but she was like easily accepted by James, for example. Like it wasn't necessarily like directly brought up by her. James brought it up, and like he was the one he was very comfortable with it, and he's much older than she is, and I think she might have brought it upon herself when really she should feel much more comfortable opening up with her family and with people around her as well.
What did you guys think when you guys reached the big reveal?
I was
Curtis and Alma.
It's really funny because so I was reading the last 200, and 200 is like basically more than half the book. I was reading 200 pages of the book while I was sitting in jury duty, sitting to be waited at jury duty. So like I'm like super emotional, and there's a lot of like police officers there, so I'm just like really like irked, like damn the system. It was really an interesting place to be at while reading this book. I was actually surprised, but it made a lot. It made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
It did.
In terms of his investment to Curtis and having him, not only
But
like. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh, it made a lot of sense because he is the tie to like all these stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then in the beginning, there was like kind of a disclaimer that said um, that basically like when they found out about the will that Frank had written before, um, it's Jackie she didn't find it a big deal that he was trying to give it to Curtis because the person that gave it to
Give it to
him
him.
was also a stranger as well. And so giving it to Curtis would have made sense because they were trying to like continue this thing where the store owners were trying to help the boys of the community.
I think it made sense in terms of like the way that the story is written. It's like showing different perspective to significant people within the story and within the I guess the discovery and the mystery, and having like Alma's story kind of in there with her relation, like when Kurtz gets caught with graffiti and stuff like that. I think it made much more sense. Just like, oh, that's why we know about this, and that's why.
I think in the having that in the beginning was like it adds to the aha moment.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
That makes so much sense now.
What about when you got closer to the ending and you kind of learn about who committed the crime? Like what was your reaction? Because I was angry.
I was really angry too. That's why I was like, that's why I felt weird being in a freaking like the courthouse. Just like, um, I felt like I wouldn't have been as angry if it was in fact the white officer that shot them, but because it was in fact a black officer, I was just like, bro, this is your community.
Your own people.
But it makes sense to like the themes that people like Asian Americans will hurt other Asian Americans, blacks will hurt other blacks, but at the same time, they'll love each other as the same. Like people are going to be people regardless.
I feel like it also sheds light on like how the discrimination of people of mixed race too, because like even the traditional Asian Americans, like they or Asians, they like kind of look down on people who are mixed race,
Mm-hmm. I think the officer was like just doing a lot of prior judgment to Curtis being a part of the graffiti at the school or the breaking into the school and the act of vandalism. I think it was idea that people can't change, which is definitely really upsetting, and people can't grow from it.
Yeah.
Like he was already pegged and forever pegged as like that kid, and Alma was very aware of that. Like when it happened, she was just like, I need to protect him more. I need to like make sure he's out of this community and stuff like that. And it's really upsetting how like that is really true and how he basically can't escape it once it's already happened.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because I mean, what is he like, 12, 13?
When the first time it happened, like he was in middle school.
Yeah, he was in middle school.
Yeah, and then he became like a respectable adult. Like there's a scene where he's like talking to Frank about, oh, we should do this, get more bread because it's selling out. We should get more candies because it looks like a lot more people and want more variety and stuff like that. He's like really a great businessman.
Yeah.
And he would have definitely done like taking care of the shop really well, which is really.
It was a very angry moment for me because I did stupid shit like that when I was in middle school. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I won't go as far to say it's like a rite of passage. I'm not gonna excuse that kind of behavior, but some things you have to do to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And getting in trouble is one of those things.
Yeah. So I guess we're on the overall thoughts and recommendations of the book now. So like, what are your overall thoughts? I love this book. So good.
It's one of my favorite books all time.
Mine too. Top 10 things.
When I first opened the book, I read the first chapter and I didn't touch it again for about a year. And
it was hard to get through the first couple of chapters. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of information.
Yeah, I read the first 2 chapters and I sat it down for like I think a week, and I told Ty, and Ty's like, "Yeah, it gets really good later," and I was like, "Okay," and then I started reading it, and I read 200 pages in one sitting. In one
Yeah.
sitting. Cool.
It
So,
if you give it a chance, it really picks up and it'll really.
It's well written too. It's not.
Mhm.
I have a thing for like bad grammar and things like that. It's written really well. So
and like the style does go to like multiple times in history, which I guess some people might find it confusing, but it like
yeah.
really I think makes sense, and the flow feels really natural.
Mhm.
It could also be because we're really used to the style now, but it feels really natural, and the way information is given to you, it does get addicting, and that you do
Yeah.
want to uncover this mystery.
I felt like
I almost
it was very much like an episode of SVU.
Yeah.
haven't watched that.
Sorry, Qua, what were you saying?
Oh, like I was when Danny was talking about the dates and how it goes from chapter to chapter. I almost missed the introduction of Alma because I like was skimming through that chapter. It didn't feel like it was an important part of the book. But yeah, it was pretty funny.
You only skim chapters when you're studying for a test, lady.
Well,
Yeah, I actually think also that I wouldn't have enjoyed this if I read it for school. I'm really glad that I read it after college. It's really
Me,
good.
me too. Funny story about that. I picked up this book while I was buying my books for a different class,
mhm.
and I just happened to see it, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?"
I actually have his copy. This is Ty's copy.
Yeah, and history of LA. Okay, I decided to get it like on a whim, and I'm really glad that I did.
Mhm.
But yeah, overall, a little rough intro, but really good to read. Overall, one of our favorites.
If you haven't gotten it to read or if you haven't read it, read it.
This is good. Prepare for crying if you're like me. I'm really emotional. I teared up in public in front of 700 people. Well, not in front of. I was among 700 people.
And she doesn't cry, so
I
that's
don't cry. I was just like, dude, that like when Frank walked up to Alma's like parents' house with flowers, and I was like, oh, the tears.
But what? We chose such a good book to start off the year.
I
But
know.
what book are we gonna choose for next month?
What'll it be, ladies?
I want to read Chew. That's a graphic novel.
What is it?
I have it actually. So, well, I have the first volume. There's 6 of them.
Should we put that on the poll? I'll put like a poll and you guys can vote.
Should we start a poll?
Yeah.
Maybe we should. I think we should do a poll and then we'll put it on our page and tell them within a week.
Okay.
We only have 2 weeks to read anyway.
Mhm.
Mm.
I read our book in a day. I'm not gonna show.
Do you have any suggestions?
Ty.
Um, not off the top of my head. I gotta go through all my old stuff.
Okay.
All right. Excellent. We will figure it out and we will post it onto interwebs.
Hey, you know what would be funny? If we did a Joy Luck Club, because I know kids in
High
that are
school?
juniors in high school or should be reading about this time.
Oh, really?
That would be
Yeah.
fun.
And then we'll tune in.
Well, we're gonna tell you everything that happens in this book.
Yeah,
All right. I'll add that to the list too. Possibilities.
that'd be funny. Okay.
Alright.
Should we like?
All right, guys. So we will end here. Follow us
ASAMX
on Facebook, Being American Expressions. Follow us on Twitter, ASAMX, with the little underscore line thing. And also, as always, check out our website, ASAMX. So, like, let me spell it out: ASAMX.com. Or you can fully type out Asian American Expressions, and it'll redirect you. All right, guys. Good job.
And break.
all the technical difficulties.
Yeah, that was
Sorry for
terrible.
the technical difficulties.
We will share our struggles in another date, another location. All right. Thank you for joining us, you guys.
Thank
For
you for
those that
joining.
watch later. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.